Hi, Wellness Warriors. I'm Melissa with Mental Muscle Wellness, and today I want to talk about how you relate your goals to your overload when it comes to strength training. So, the first thing to talk about is what exactly is overload? Overload are the three variables that exist within strength training that personal trainers manipulate when they're coming up with your actual program, your actual workouts, and what you're doing. The first overload variable is frequency of training. And frequency of training refers to how many days per week you're actually stressing a given muscle or muscle group. So sometimes you'll notice when people go to the gym to strength train or when you're strength training at home, you're not necessarily doing a full body routine, which means that your frequency of training is not necessarily every single time you're strength training. Okay. So for example, if you don't bench press every single time you strength train, you may not necessarily be stressing your pectoral muscle group every time you're training. The second overload variable is intensity. And with strength training, that's always referring to how much weight you're picking up, how heavy it is. Typically, trainers like to refer to a percentage of one repetition max. A one repetition max is how much weight you can do one time with good form. Now, we don't typically test that with every single exercise. However, one repetition max, if you've never been through it, is a good baseline to help you gauge really how much should you be picking up. And the third overload variable is volume. Volume refers to how much work you've actually done. And in strength training, we quantify that by the number of sets and repetitions of a given exercise you've done. In terms of a muscle group, that's also quantified by how many exercises you've done for that muscle group. So going back to my pectoral muscle group example, if you bench press and do dumbbell pec flies in the same session, you need to count everything, all of your sets and repetitions for both of those exercises to quantify the volume for your pectoral muscle group. So why is this important as it comes to goals? Well, the first reason actually has to do with the relative interaction of these three variables. They're linked, and you cannot have all three variables set at a low level and expect to see change. So if you are only strength training a few days a week, if you're not lifting very heavy weight, and if you're not doing a good number of sets and repetitions, you may not actually be stressing your system enough to initiate change. So that's something important to look at. If you're doing this on your own and you're not happy with your results, you're not seeing what you want to be seeing, take a look at how much you're actually doing with each of these variables. It may be that something needs to be bumped up for you to actually see measurable changes. On the flip side of things, you also can't have all of your variables set at a high level. If you are training every single day of the week and you're training the same muscle 5-6 times a week, if you're lifting really heavy weight when you do it and you're doing a lot of sets and repetition, that muscle or muscle group doesn't have any recovery time built in. And that's critically important when it comes to strength training. You have to have recovery time built in so that your body actually has time to make the changes that you want to see. If you're lifting and everything is at that really high level, you're actually setting yourself up in a situation that could create injury, both in terms of immediate physical injury, muscle tears, strains, pulls, that sort of thing, and chronic or long-term injuries, things that build up over time. Again, because your body is lacking rest and recovery. So beyond that, how do we take a look at which variables should be high versus which variables should be low given a certain set of goals? Okay. What you want to do is you want to take a look at the goal in and of itself. If your goal is hypertrophy or actually gaining muscle mass and muscle size, the way that you stimulate that in the body is by lifting very intensely. So when you go and you design your program for hypertrophy, you want to make sure that you are lifting very high percentages of what you are able to lift. That breaks down the muscle tissue and it stimulates the physiology of your body to repair the muscles so that it comes back stronger and more able to take those forces. Okay. Typically people who lift for hypertrophy training are doing a fair amount of volume. 5 sets of 5 is the typical range, which is 25 total repetitions per exercise. That's neither very low nor very high. It's somewhere in the middle. Their recovery variable, where recovery comes in for them, happens to be frequency. People who are, again, training with hypertrophy in mind typically are only stressing a certain muscle group or a certain portion of their body once a week. Again, this is a group that is typically going in, and Monday is chest day, and they might do multiple exercises to focus on their pectoral muscles. However, they're not touching chest until Monday the following week. So even though they've lifted very heavy and they've done a moderate amount of volume on it, their frequency is their recovery variable. They're not stressing that muscle group until it has had a full good long week to recover. The flip side is also true. Say you are new to exercise and you want to get into strength training and you really just want to maintain what you have right now, or maybe your doctor has suggested to you, hey, you've had this particular accident or injury and we would like to make sure that your body is strong. What you're looking for there is really to maintain physical function where you have it. And that's the opposite end of the spectrum. This is a group where intensity is not the variable you want to be concentrating on. You want to be concentrating on allowing your muscles to function and to increase range of motion, to increase very slightly maybe the amount of weight that you're able to pick up. So the variable that you want to focus on here is frequency. You want to be strength training certain muscle groups multiple times across the week, which means intensity is naturally going to have to be lower. Again, in this group, we still typically see moderate level volumes. 2 sets of 12 or 3 sets of 10 tend to be where most people fall. So it's between 24 and 30 total repetitions per exercise. Again, it's not much different than the hypertrophy group. It's the other two variables. It's your frequency and your intensity of training that are different. Okay. A lot of people fall in the middle, and that's really where the confusion starts to lie in. People who are training maybe for body composition changes. You want to lose weight and gain muscle at the same time, but you're not necessarily looking to put on a huge amount of muscle size. Maybe individuals who are looking to strength train because they're participating in a sport and they want to support their endeavors with that. There's a huge range of what can happen in the middle. And again, it's important to look at what your specific goal is before you decide how you're tweaking that frequency, intensity, and volume of training. The general rule of thumb is that there should be one variable that is high. That is what we would refer to as your training variable. There should be one variable that falls in the middle, and then there should be one variable that's on the low end of the scale, and we would refer to that as your recovery variable. These can also vary based on your individual lifestyle. For example, if you are a person who wants to train for body composition changes, you want to lose body fat while putting on a little bit of muscle, you can attack that in several different ways, and some of it may be more specific to who you are and what you need. You can certainly go about doing that by having a higher frequency program and doing total body strength training 3 times a week at moderate intensity and volume. You can also go about attacking that by having a lower frequency program, by maybe doing a push-pull legs, so splitting your body up into its functional groups and concentrating on one piece of the puzzle. You're still strength training 3 days during the week, but your training routine may actually be a little bit shorter if you do it that way. So if you're pressed for time, that can be a good option. So again, you need to look at not only your goals, but who you are and what you need for your life. Because every trainer worth their salt will tell you that the most important variable outside of everything else I've talked about in this video is consistency. Those people who participate consistently are going to be the ones who meet their goal faster every single time. So I hope you found this video helpful, and if you have any specific questions, feel free to absolutely leave them in the comments section and I'll try and help you out as best I can. If you like what I do, hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit the notification bell so you get notified when I upload. And until next time, be well, friends.